Let's jump right into this explainer with a massive, almost impossible-sounding question. How exactly do you build a single, unified nation out of 250 distinct ethnic groups?
Over 250. That's the actual number of distinct ethnic nationalities speaking hundreds of different dialects that all call Nigeria home. We're talking about a true powerhouse of population and culture. But it's also a place grappling with a pretty wild paradox. You've got immense, staggering natural wealth on one hand and severe historical instability on the other.
So, welcome to our explainer on the Giant of Africa. Today, we're going to trace the incredible journey of how this beautifully diverse region actually evolved into modern-day Nigeria. We'll navigate through ancient civilizations, colonial intervention, and the ongoing, messy pursuit of unity.
We've broken this journey down into 5 parts. First, a tapestry of nations. Second, the colonial amalgamation. Third, independence and civil war. Fourth, black gold and democracy. And finally, culture and future prospects.
All right, part 1, a tapestry of nations, pre-colonial autonomy, and diversity. When you look at the demographics, a super fascinating picture emerges. The Yoruba, the Igbo, and the House of Fulani make up roughly 65% of the population. But what about that remaining 35%? Well, that chunk represents hundreds of other totally unique autonomous nations. Each of these groups had their own rich linguistic and cultural makeup, thriving as independent, sovereign groups way before Europeans ever arrived.
And we mean way before. The area of modern Nigeria is literally one of the cradles of Africa's earliest civilizations. We're talking about highly sophisticated artifacts from the Jos Plateau that date all the way back to 8000 BC. From the village group autonomy of the Igbo to the incredibly complex historic cities of the Yoruba, this was a land of fiercely independent, highly organized societies.
Which brings us to part 2, the colonial amalgamation, the creation of a modern geopolitical entity. The absolute defining moment here hit in 1914. This was when Lord Lugard and the British administration officially mashed together the northern and southern protectorates. But, and this is absolutely crucial to understand, this was a forced union. It was created strictly for administrative and commercial convenience, not because there was some organic, shared national identity brewing.
To actually govern this massively complex new entity, the British leaned heavily on a divide-and-rule tactic. Up in the north, they took an Islamic route, basically ruling indirectly through local emirs and semi-autonomous courts. Meanwhile, the South experienced what historians often call Christianity by the Sea, which meant a heavy push toward Western education and mission schools.
Now, this strategy of separate development, it had some devastating consequences, forcing rival groups together while keeping their development incredibly unequal both economically and educationally, deliberately blocked any real sense of unified nationhood. It essentially weaponized religious and ethnic differences, planting the very seeds for the deep-rooted divisions that we still see today. Moving on to part 3, independence and civil war, the fractured dawn of a new nation.
As you can probably guess, the transition to self-governance wasn't exactly smooth. In fact, it was a period of rapid, tragic chaos. The sheer euphoria of gaining independence from Britain in 1960 fractured almost immediately. By 1966, fragile political alliances had completely broken down into military coups. And those coups? They were the spark that ignited the devastating Biafran Civil War in 1967.
The drive behind the secession of Biafra was rooted in intense feelings of marginalization. The Igbo people in the eastern region felt completely unrepresented under a federal government that was dominated by the North. The conflict that followed was horrific, resulting in immense casualties in what sources soberly describe as a 3-year-long starving match.
The war finally ended in 1970. The federal government rolled out a no victor, no vanquished policy, which was supposed to heal this deeply fractured nation. But the reality on the ground was a post-war era defined by lingering mutual distrust. To try and manage all this immense diversity, the country was carved up into 36 regional states. Even so, the political scene just became this repeating cycle of military dictatorships, with democratic governance getting interrupted a staggering 29 times.
Okay, part 4, black gold and democracy, the paradox of the oil boom and the return to civil rule.
Right in the middle of all this intense political turbulence, the discovery of oil and olobiri in 1956 completely flipped Nigeria's economic destiny.
This oil boom sparked rapid economic expansion, transforming the country into a major global exporter pretty much overnight. But it also created some deep systemic economic paradoxes. The immense wealth from this black gold was the ultimate double-edged sword. On one side, you had massive capital expenditure, huge urban growth, and commercial banks popping up everywhere. But on the flip side, it triggered a severe neglect of the agricultural sector. It worsened inflation, led to serious environmental disasters, and ended up concentrating insane amounts of wealth in the hands of just a few, which, as you'd expect, fueled massive corruption. Even when the country finally made a hopeful return to a multi-party democratic system in 1999, the scars of the past really stuck around. Today, the state still struggles to translate its staggering natural resources into actual solutions for everyday people. A new constitution and the end of military rule exist side by side with endemic poverty, a jaw-dropping 65% youth unemployment rate, and ongoing regional militancy from groups like Boko Haram and factions in the Niger Delta.
Finally, Part 5, Culture and Future Prospects, the resilient glue holding the giant together.
If we pivot away from the political struggles and just look at the people themselves, the brilliance is undeniable. Nigeria has an absolutely massive global cultural footprint. We are talking world-class art, literature, folklore, and pioneering mixed-media music and dance that powers massive global phenomena like Afrobeats. It is literally a cultural force of nature.
Now get this, $1.8 trillion. That is the estimated GDP potential of this demographic powerhouse. A whopping 70% of Nigeria's population is under 35 years old. Think about that for a second. This is a massive, energetic youth force that is actively pooling resources, driving innovation, and demanding a better future, looking way beyond the historical divisions of the past. Despite all the historical fractures we've talked about, it's actually these profoundly shared cultural values that act as the organic glue of the nation. Nigerians share a deep respect for elders, incredibly strong family and kinship ties, consideration for their neighbors, and a real commitment to fair play. Honestly, these shared human values are the true, solid foundation for integration across those 250 distinct ethnic groups. So, as we wrap up this explainer, we're left with one critical, lingering question. Will Nigeria fully realize its staggering potential by leveraging its incredible youth and vibrant cultural unity? Or will it remain trapped in the complex paradox of its own history? The future of the giant of Africa depends entirely on the answer.